So the Welsh Government has announced its plans to make it easier for people to change gender.
What in the name of female rapist penis is going on? How can Wales First Minister Mark Drakeford look at what has happened in Scotland with the SNP and Nicola Sturgeon over the last month and think, that's the path for me? What an absolute womb ferret. For context, this is what the iJournalist Nick Duffy wrote this weekend. The Welsh Government says it will make a formal request to dissolve powers related to gender recognition, as the nation seeks permission to make trans rights reforms. But the UK government appears to have flatly rejected the request following constitutional wrangling in Scotland. An action plan published on Tuesday confirmed that the Welsh administration will seek devolution of powers in relation to gender recognition and support for the trans community, suggesting the issue could be devolved in a short time. By the way, this clip is from Spiked podcast. I thoroughly recommend following Spiked. It's my go-to for sensible, balanced political discussion. Let's see what they had to say.
Welsh First Minister Mark Drakeford is set to ask the UK government for permission to have the powers in order to introduce these gender reforms. Ella, I mean, we've just had the debacle in Scotland over gender self-ID. It seems to have done significant damage to Nicola Sturgeon's credibility and that of the SNP. Why on earth is Mark Drakeford following in her footsteps?
Well, why on earth does Mark Drakeford do anything that he does? I mean, he's not exactly a politician that has covered himself in glory, and people will remember his legacy throughout the pandemic. But I think at this point it's very hard to not be cynical in relation to these kind of announcements about gender reforms, where this literally looks like a competition as to what devolved government can be the shiniest, best, most kind of rainbow coloured institution. Any sensible politician would look at what would, in a kind of cold, sort of sanguine, sensible way, look at the mess that has taken place just in terms of the creation of legislation in Scotland, how it was not going to work in relation to coming into contact with equality law in the rest of the UK, the fact that so many people were opposed to it, both in Scotland and outside of Scotland. And why would you then want to do something similar?
I genuinely do not believe that 90% of politicians on the left of politics believe in this. It's pure opportunism. It's probably right to say that the LGBTQ plus community do not feel represented or well represented by the right of politics, because parties like the Conservatives are based on traditionalism. And whilst I don't want to disingenuously propose that the Tories are 100% allies to the LGBTQ plus community, I would go as far as to suggest most are respectful and understanding. What people from the right of the far left won't do is sugarcoat, which is at least honest. Because I would bet 50p that Nicola Sturgeon and Mark Drakeford are not allies either. Look how quickly the SNP had to concede on the gender recognition bill. They didn't fight that battle for equality. They fought that battle because they want independence and see disenfranchised communities as easy targets to win over. The Labour Party is split on this too. I don't believe for a moment that Keir Starmer is going to support Mark Drakeford. He'll quite happily let Rishi do what he's doing. He wants to be Prime Minister of the UK. And to do that, he needs to win back the working classes. The working classes see the world relatively simply. They want to do an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, look after their family, look after their friends, and look after their community. The rest, whether you and I agree on it or not, is considered niff-naff and trivia. It's why the Tories have done so well. As with life, the same with politics. If someone is agreeing with you 100% of the time, they are lying. Besides, Mark Drakeford, as my nan used to say, is a fucking idiot. The fact that he thinks this is the time or the policy is testament to that. What a knob.